Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of betrayal, infidelity, and redemption, raw, honest, and deeply human. Each episode dives into the tangled lives of those facing heartbreak and hard choices, where truth isn't always clean, but growth is always possible. Now on to today's story. East Van Exit. Chapter 1. Savasana Lies. The rain had let up by the time Jesse slid open the warped garage door. His breath misted in the February chill, mingling with the lingering scent of motor oil, wet concrete, and his last client's chain lube. The garage, half shop, half sanctuary, had been patched together from salvaged cedar, Craigslist finds, and the patience of a man raised by a carpenter who never once said, "I love you," but taught him how to fix things right the first time. His hands were still dirty from adjusting brake cables on an aging Norco when he heard her voice. "Hey babe, do you know where the sage sticks went?" She always asked like it mattered to him. "Top drawer beside the carb cleaner," he said, not looking up. His voice was level, not cold, but neutral. Lately, that neutrality had become his safe place. Zen via numbness. Nadia floated in, all draped scarves and vegan smugness. Her hair was in a loose bun, incense already trailing behind her like she was mid-conjuring. She'd just finished teaching her Sunday sacred surrender flow at the studio down on First. Her clients adored her. Jesse had once overheard her describe herself as a conduit for awakening masculine energy. That had been the first real crack. He wiped his hands on a towel and watched her light the sage, walk around the space, murmuring to herself. "New guy today," she said casually. Said I really opened up his hips. Jesse raised an eyebrow, but didn't bite. Like, really open them. I think he had a release. Crying, you know? Beautiful. Still nothing. Nadia moved closer, leaned on the workbench like she wasn't the kind of person who used the word toxic unironically about cheese. "You okay, babe? You've been kinda flat lately." He smiled. "I'm good. Just thinking." That was always enough for her to change the subject. She had no real interest in his thoughts. That night, after she'd gone to bed early to reclaim her feminine dream space, Jesse sat at the kitchen table with a lukewarm Hoin dark matter and the stack of overdue bills. Rent was creeping up again. The yoga studio took more than it gave. And Jesse, despite being the one who built the garage-turned-workshop and paid most of the bills, was slowly being squeezed out of his own home. Something didn't feel right. Hadn't for months. She'd been distant, but also performative. Sweet when she needed a ride, cold when she got a new private client. The final straw came quietly, through a forgotten iPad left open in the kitchen. Jesse wasn't a snooper, but the message was just there. "Full chakra release again next week. Winky face. You're a powerful man, Aaron." Followed by a photo. Just her legs, bare on the studio floor. Not overtly sexual, but not innocent either. Jesse stared at it for a long time, then closed the iPad and cracked another beer. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. He didn't confront her. Not that night. Not the next. Jesse wasn't a yeller. He didn't believe in scenes. That's what people like Nadia fed on. Energy, drama, growth moments. He'd give her none of it. Instead, he started quietly moving tools and supplies into storage. He called Dave, his old friend from the Peony maintenance crew, and asked about that commercial unit near Hastings. "Got a vacancy," Dave said. "Cheap if you do your own drywall." "Perfect." He registered a sole proprietorship, East Van Bikes. 2 weeks later, Nadia walked in after a long, healing circle in Mount Pleasant to find the living room half empty and the garage locked. "What the actual, Jesse?" He was already gone. Left her a letter. Short. Clean. "You opened his hips. I opened a new life. You keep the sage. I'll keep my dignity." The door clicked softly behind her as she reread it. No explosion. No begging. Just absence. And for Jesse, riding his rebuilt Kona through the misty streets of East Van, that silence felt better than any revenge. Chapter 2. Drywall, dead phones, and dodging drama. The new space smelled like mold and ambition. Jesse stood in the doorway of the Hastings unit, holding a half-eaten breakfast sandwich and a roll of blueprints he didn't entirely understand. It was a former vape shop. Walls painted an unfortunate neon orange, floors sticky with the ghosts of synthetic mango, and a cracked mirror someone had once written, "Don't let the system kill your vibe," on in Sharpie. He exhaled and looked around. Perfect, he muttered. The first week was full of small victories. He patched the drywall, scraped gum off baseboards, and found an espresso machine in the back room that, miraculously, still worked. Each day, he brought over a few more tools from storage. One by one, the bikes came in, friends' fixies, old mountain beaters, and eventually, a near-mint Bianchi a retired courier handed over with a nod and a treat her right. Word of mouth was already spreading. But it wasn't all poetic reinvention. Day 6, the Bluetooth speaker died mid-Alexis on fire. He was elbow-deep in a bottom bracket when the music cut out. At first he thought it was the playlist, but no, just dead. He stared at it for a moment. Traitor. The silence felt too heavy, so he opened the door to let in the sound of Hastings traffic, sirens, distant yelling, a guy on the corner preaching about fluoride and Elon Musk. Still better than the yoga chants that used to drift through his old garage. Then came the knock. He looked up to see someone he hadn't seen in a year and a half. Polly, his ex's ex, a lanky, bearded artist who painted murals of animals wearing suits and said blessings instead of goodbye. Jess. Polly beamed, arms open like a cult leader. Heard you broke free, brother. Jesse just raised an eyebrow. I'm guessing you saw the Instagram post. Oh yeah, Polly said, stepping inside. Nadia went full divine feminine meltdown. One of those 3-minute crying reels in soft lighting. I think she called you a shadow lesson. Jesse snorted. She really say that? Polly nodded. Yeah, said you were part of her karmic exfoliation. They both laughed harder than the line deserved. You working bikes now? Polly said, eyeing the space. This place got soul. No soul yet, Jesse said, wiping grease on his jeans. Just torque wrenches and rent I can barely cover. Well, Polly said, digging into his messenger bag. Then let me make an offering. He handed Jesse a beat-up JBL speaker. She left this at my place like 3 years ago. Maybe it's cursed. Or maybe it's just a speaker. Jesse took it, plugged it in. The battery light blinked blue. A minor miracle. He nodded. Appreciate it. Consider it karmic rebalancing, Polly said, backing out the door. Blessings, my dude. Right back at ya. That night, Jesse sat on the floor of the empty shop, back against the wall, sipping a craft lager from Bomber Brewing and listening to music that didn't involve didgeridoos or throat singing. He looked around the space. Still rough. Still weird. Still his. Then he texted a buddy from high school, one of those solid guys who never asked questions when you said, I need a hand. Yo, opening soon. You still got that sandwich board? The reply came fast. Yeah, I'll even spell everything right this time. You wanted to say East Van Bikes or Hipster Free Zone? Jesse laughed into the foam of his beer. For the first time in a long time, things felt simple. Chapter 3. Soft launch, sharp turns. The chalkboard out front read, East Van Bikes. Openish. Air, tunes, and truth, free with purchase. The morning drizzle hadn't deterred anyone. In East Van, rain was just a fact of life, like condo developments and people calling themselves creatives, without clarifying what they did. Jesse flipped the sign, put on the gifted JBL speaker, now blasting tragically hip, and opened the door. He expected a trickle. He got a flood. First came Mikey from the skate shop next door with a bent rear derailleur and a 6-pack peace offering. Then came Rhea, an ex-bike courier turned freelance UX designer, who dropped off 2 bikes and insisted on paying in cash or beer. Jesse said beer. It was early, but he was already behind on invoices. By noon, the shop smelled like chain grease, sweat, and hope. Then the bell jingled. She walked in like she owned air. Nadia, hair tied back, floaty scarf, barefoot, always barefoot. Holding a single flat tire like she hadn't ghosted him for a tantric personal trainer named Aaron who still spelled their 3 ways wrong. Oh good, you're open, she said brightly. This happened on the way to Soundbath Circle. Mercury, you know. He didn't say anything at first, just wiped his hands, looked at the tire, then back at her. You've got options, he said evenly. You can wait an hour, or you can take it to the bike kitchen on 10th. They do good work. She blinked. You're not going to help me? I'm busy, Nadia. She smiled, a flicker of the performance. Come on. We shared a home. A life. He paused. Yeah, and you shared it with Aaron, too. A tense silence. Look, she said, her voice dipping into that breathy, yogi trying to stay calm tone. I thought you'd moved on. I did. I just don't fix free tires for people who called me a masculine blockage on social media. She flinched slightly. You read that? I read the comments. Erin left 3 fire emojis and a moon. That cracked the moment. She let out a huff, shoved the wheel back into her bike, and stormed off. Still barefoot. A passing teenager on a BMX muttered, "Was that a cult leader?" Jesse grinned. Close enough. That night, Jesse sat behind the counter, tallying the day's small wins. 5 bikes repaired, 3 new word-of-mouth referrals, and 1 excellent moment of personal boundary setting. The speaker still played softly behind him. Blue Rodeo this time. He stared at the now laminated sign he'd added beneath the chalkboard. We fix bikes, not karma. Business was rolling. So was he. Chapter 4, Rebalancing Acts. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. Jesse stood at the shop counter, sipping burnt coffee from a chipped mug shaped like a bike saddle, a gag gift from Mikey. The rain hadn't let up. The street outside shimmered with slick pavement and the occasional splash from a number 14 bus. He was halfway through his inbox when the bell over the door rang. She walked in like someone who knew how not to get noticed. Tall, athletic build, plain hoodie, ball cap pulled low. She wheeled in a sleek black commuter bike with an obvious rear spoke issue. "Hey," she said, giving him a small nod. Her voice had a rasp, like someone who either smoked or taught spin classes. "Hey," Jesse replied. "What's the problem?" Wheels wobbling. "I hit a pothole near Trout Lake, and now it sounds like I'm dragging a cowbell everywhere I go." He gave a half smile. "Bring it over." She leaned the bike against the workbench and peeled off her hoodie. Underneath was a tank top that revealed a full-sleeve tattoo, mountains and cedar trees, done in clean black ink. She watched him work for a moment. "You're Jesse, right?" she asked. He froze just slightly, then nodded. "That's me." "I'm Rowan," she said. "I used to go to Nadia's classes." Jesse raised an eyebrow. "Not those kinds of classes," she clarified, smirking. "I actually liked her at first, before it all got breathy and manipulative." He chuckled softly. "Yeah, that checks out." "Honestly," she continued, "it stopped being yoga and started feeling like some pyramid scheme for emotional dependency." Jesse looked up. "That's the most accurate thing I've ever heard." Rowan smiled, and for a second, the tension in the room dropped. She wasn't flirting, not overtly. But there was something solid about her. No games. Just someone who knew how to hold eye contact without making it weird. "You're good with your hands," she said, watching him true the wheel. "That's what my ex used to say," he replied dryly. "Right before she handed me an invoice for spiritual blockage." Rowan laughed, genuinely. "I swear, East Van has more emotionally weaponized relationships than it has cafes." "You're not wrong." He tightened the last spoke, spun the wheel. "Clean. Silent. You're good to go." She nodded, pulling out her wallet. "How much?" "Call it 20. She raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yeah," he said. "You laughed at my joke. That counts as payment around here." Rowan handed him a crisp 20 and paused. "You gonna be around Saturday?" "Unless the world ends or someone offers me a life in the Yukon. There's a bike meetup down at Strathcona Park. Nothing official. Just misfits and mechanics, showing off weird builds. You might like it." He hesitated. Not because he didn't want to go, but because it had been a while since anyone had invited him to something without an agenda. "I'll think about it," he said. "Think fast," she replied, pulling her hoodie back on. "Misfits get first dibs on the coffee." She was gone a moment later, the door swinging shut behind her. Jesse looked down at the crisp bill on the counter. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like burning sage or posting a passive-aggressive Instagram story. He just felt okay. Chapter 5, Strathcona Gears and Ghosts. Strathcona Park smelled like wet bark mulch and burned espresso. Jesse locked his bike to a bent metal rack under a cedar tree and scanned the meetup. About 30 people had gathered, bike punks, fixie fanatics, bearded dudes with custom welds, women in tool belts, and a few wandering kids on scooters. A guy on a unicycle balanced a tray of vegan muffins. Another guy wore a full banana costume and debated gear ratios with an engineer from Richmond. No name tags. No sponsors. Just community. He spotted Rowan near a rusted-out food truck that had been retrofitted to serve pour-over coffee and smoked tofu sliders. She was in jeans, a rain jacket, no makeup, and somehow looked more grounded than anyone else there. She noticed him and waved. Not big, not performative, just enough to say, "Glad you showed." "You came," she said. "Banana guy sold it." She handed him a coffee. "Black." "I figured." Jesse sipped. "You guess everyone's order?" "Only people I want to get to know." Before he could respond, a familiar voice cut through the air. "Jesse." He turned. "Aaron." The tantric trainer. Man bun. Cargo joggers. T-shirt with the words "Consent is my love language." Holding a cargo bike with a Bluetooth speaker bungee to the front and a small dog in the rear basket wearing a sweater that said "Align." Aaron smiled like they were long-lost cousins. "Whoa, dude. I didn't know you were in the bike world." "I fix things," Jesse said flatly. Aaron chuckled. "I feel that. I fix energy. Like, same but different." Rowan's eyebrow arched. "Jesse fixed my will last week." Silently. Efficiently. No crystals involved. Aaron looked briefly thrown off, then recovered. "That's the beauty of this city, man. We're all just mirroring each other's wounds until we transcend." Jesse looked at him calmly. "Are you going to buy a sandwich or just keep saying words?" Aaron's smile faltered. "I'm going to check out the gravel builds," Rowan said, grabbing her coffee. "Come find me when you're done, transcending." Jesse nodded, watching her walk away. Aaron leaned in slightly. "She says she doesn't believe in labels," he said, voice lowered. "But that's usually code for still healing from a toxic masculine container. You know?" Jesse stared at him. "Aaron, what I know is that you're standing between me and a tofu slider." Aaron took the hint and vanished into the crowd, muttering something about sacred geometry. Later, Jesse found Rowan standing over a bizarre chopper-style bike made entirely of salvaged snow shovel handles and steel tubing. The two builders were explaining how the frame doubled as a stovetop espresso system. "This is the weirdest date I've ever accidentally been on," she said, not looking at him. "Same," Jesse said. "Although one time Nadia took me to a kombucha-fueled moon circle where everyone howled into a jar." Rowan grinned. "That sounds illegal." It felt illegal. They stood side by side for a moment, watching the espresso bike sputter to life. "I like that you didn't take a swing at Aaron," she said finally. "I've got tools sharper than his jawline," Jesse said. "No need." Rowan turned to face him. "I think you're different than how she described you." "Oh yeah? How'd she describe me?" "Cold. Emotionally closed. Mechanically gifted but spiritually dense." Jesse shrugged. "That's fair. Except the dense part. I was the first to figure out she was full of it." "She still posts about you, by the way." Jesse raised an eyebrow. "Really? Subtle stuff?" Instagram captions like, "Healed from metal hands and sharp silences." Jesse chuckled. "Sounds like a Tool album." Rowan stepped slightly closer, her tone changing. "She's going to keep spinning it. But you? You're just living." "That's rarer than people think." He didn't say anything right away. Just nodded, let the words land. For the first time in a long time, someone was talking to him. Not around him. Not through him. As the sun cracked through the clouds over the North Shore, Jesse unlocked his bike and looked over at Rowan. "You heading back?" "Yeah. I'm near Clark and 10th. Need a tune-up before the ride?" She smiled. "Only if it comes with more dry sarcasm and black coffee." "I've got a shop," he said. "We serve both." They rode off together. Two bikes. Two mismatched gears. Somehow in sync. Chapter 6. Reviews, Rent, and Real Talk. Monday morning rolled in on 2 wheels and a headache. Jesse rubbed his temples as he stared at his shop's latest Yelp review, projected on his cracked laptop screen. 2 stars. Atmosphere was moody, and the owner has unresolved masculine energy. He refused to fix my tire unless I waited an hour, even though I clearly needed help in the moment. Sometimes the universe shows you who's still on the lower frequency. Also, no incense. Moonlight 88. He didn't need a forensics degree to guess who wrote it. 2 eyes in moonlight, he muttered. Of course. Mikey popped in from the skate shop next door, balancing a to-go coffee and a broken deck. "You look like someone who just read Yelp on an empty stomach." "I got spiritually dunked on by my ex," Jesse said, spinning the laptop around. Mikey whistled. "That's the artisanal version of a drive-by." "I don't care," Jesse lied. Mikey didn't press it. Just dropped off a broken cruiser for tuning, tossed him a cinnamon bun, and disappeared like a true friend. Jesse got back to work. There were wheels to true, chains to grease, and a pair of old Shimano pedals so rusted they might as well have been bolted to a tugboat. By mid-afternoon, The bell over the shop door chimed again. This time, Dino, his landlord. White hair, tinted aviators, track jacket with a faded Olympic '88 patch. Dino was one of those old-school East Van Italians who'd owned half the block since the '80s and still called everyone kid. Jess, Dino said, not removing his sunglasses. We got a situation. Jesse wiped his hands. That's never a good way to start a sentence. Got a developer sniffing around. Wants to buy up the row. Offer came in hot. Jesse kept his face still. You selling? Not yet. But I gotta raise rent by October. New assessments. You know how it is. How much of a raise? 15%. Jesse whistled. That's steep for a guy who fixes derailleur hangers and eats expired burritos. Dino shrugged. It's East Van, kid. Steep's the only terrain we got. After Dino left, Jesse sat on a milk crate and stared at the laminated "Fixing Bikes Not Karma" sign. 15% didn't sound like a lot until you had to choose between a torque wrench or groceries. He thought about side gigs. Tune-up workshops? Freelance builds? Selling branded mugs? That's when Rowan walked in. She was holding a paper bag and her helmet, hair slightly wind-mussed, cheeks red from the ride. I brought food, she said, and a pitch. You always come bearing existential curveballs. Only for mechanics I respect. She handed him the bag. Inside, a banh mi from her favorite spot near Broadway. He took a bite, grateful, even as he braced for whatever was next. I've been thinking, she said, sitting on the workbench. You've got something real here. People already trust you. What if you leaned into that? Not just wrenching. Workshops, pop-up rides, community builds. Jesse raised an eyebrow. You offering me a marketing strategy? I'm offering you a partnership. Or a project. I don't know yet. I just know you've got a space that people want to be in. He swallowed another bite. You want to co-host a bike cult? Sure, she deadpanned. But without the sex scandals and gluten-free moon ceremonies. They laughed. And for a minute, it felt easy. Then her tone softened. You've got roots here, Jesse. Let them grow. Don't just survive. Bill. He didn't answer right away. Because it scared him. Not her offer, but the part of himself that wanted to say yes. Later, after she'd gone, Jesse stood outside the shop and looked at the sky. Moody gray with a flicker of pink breaking through the clouds. He lit a cigarette he hadn't planned to smoke. Somewhere, Moonlight 88 was probably manifesting his downfall with a playlist of whale sounds and Palo Santo. But here, now he had something real. Tools. People. Coffee that didn't suck. A woman with her own gravity. Rent going up, sure. But maybe so was he. Jesse took a drag, exhaled slow, and walked back inside. Chapter 7. Bearings and Baggage. Just remember, Rowan said, stacking folding chairs by the back wall. This isn't therapy. It's chain lube and questionable snacks. Same difference in East Van, Jesse muttered, untangling an extension cord like it had personally wronged him. It was 6:47 p.m. The shop had been rearranged into something resembling a community garage. Workstands ready, toolkits open, coffee pot on, and a bowl of discount candy in the corner because Rowan insisted people bond over sugar. Their plan was simple, DIY repair night. No payment, no pressure. Just an open door for locals to bring their broken bikes and ask questions without judgment. By 7:05, it was working. A hipster couple with matching Bromptons arrived first, arguing playfully about tire pressure. Then a high school kid with a Craigslist fixie and no clue how brakes worked. Rowan showed him how to adjust cable tension like she'd been born with a 5mm Allen key in her hand. Jesse stood back for a second, watching the room fill with low hums of conversation and laughter. The place felt alive. Then the door opened again, and in walked Cass. He recognized her immediately. Nadia's kid sister, younger by 5 years, more grounded, less inclined to follow lunar cycles or buy into ascension coaching. She wore a denim jacket covered in enamel pins and carried a beat-up old cruiser with one pedal half broken. Hey, she said casually. Hey, Jesse replied, slower. Rowan gave him a look. He gave her a micro shrug. He hadn't seen Cass since the breakup. Last he heard, she was in Victoria working at a community garden and dating a percussionist. Cass wheeled the bike over. You got time? Sure, Jesse said. Pedal stripped. Yeah, probably my fault. I panic-braked into a mailbox. Rowan took over with the hipster couple, sensing this needed space. Jesse knelt and started unscrewing the busted pedal. So, you still with drum guy? Cass smirked. Nah. Turns out rhythmic energy isn't the same as emotional maturity. That's very East Van of you. She crouched beside him. I saw Nadia last week. He didn't answer. She's still spiraling. Blames you for everything, obviously. Says you're bitter and hiding in your man cave of steel emotions. Jesse chuckled bitterly. She always did love a metaphor. Cass lowered her voice. She also said you tried to control her. That you didn't let her breathe as her fullest self. Right? Because asking someone not to sleep with their Reiki instructor is basically emotional jail. Cass nodded. I know. Jesse looked up. You do? I lived with her for 6 months, remember? I saw it. The emotional puppeteering, the twisting of words into incense-scented nonsense. You weren't the villain. You were just the adult in the room. He didn't know what to say to that. Cass stood, brushing her hands off. I just wanted you to hear it from someone who wasn't projecting chakras onto their own guilt. Jesse tightened the pedal, stood, and looked her in the eye. Thanks. She smiled. Also, I figured you might need this. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a sealed envelope. No name on the front. Just a wax seal stamped with a crescent moon. He didn't take it. Cass nodded. Didn't think you would. I'm burning it later. He smiled, genuinely this time. Do me a favor. Play Tool while you do. Later that night, after the last person left and the coffee went cold, Jesse and Rowan sat on the workbench, feet dangling. That girl, Rowan said, looked like trouble. She's Nadia's sister. Oh, damn. Yeah. Rowan took a sip of her water. You okay? Actually, yeah. First time in a while, but yeah. They sat in the comfortable silence of people who weren't trying to fix each other. Just bikes. Chapter 8. Viral Grease and the Clean Hands Offer. The text came in at 6:42 a.m. Cass. Bro. You're trending. Like, trending. Jesse groaned, rolled over, and opened the link she sent. A TikTok. The caption read, East Van Bike Goblin tells tech bro to go outside. I love him. The video showed Jesse mid-DIY night, responding to a clearly clueless dude with a carbon fiber monstrosity asking if his bike could just be fixed via an app. Jesse, deadpan and in full grease-stained glory, replied, Sure. It's called your hands. The video cut to a series of hard zooms on his stoic face, intercut with captions like, mansplained by the last real human in Vancouver. It had 140,000 likes. Cass texted again. Cass, you're officially a thirst trap for divorced baristas and anti-capitalists. By noon, the shop was flooded. 3 UBC girls came in to get a tire fixed, but mostly just asked him questions like, Are you the guy who hates apps? And do you always wear coveralls? A guy in an oat milk hoodie said he biked from New West to feel the vibe in person. Jesse was quietly terrified. Rowan showed up with donuts and zero surprise. Enjoying your moment as Vancouver's grumpy bike daddy. Why is that a phrase people keep saying? Because the people are hungry, Jesse. He rubbed his eyes. I'm just trying to install a bottom bracket without being memed. Too late. You're a meme now. Ride the wave. At 2:30 p.m., the real twist came. A man in black loafers and a quarter-zip merino sweater walked in holding a branded leather portfolio and the posture of someone who didn't know how to talk to a room without owning it. Jesse Webb, he asked. That depends, Jesse said, tightening his spoke. The man extended a card. Elias Moretti. Strategic Growth, Urban Tech Mobility Company. We're building a network of last-mile urban bike hubs, Elias explained. Your TikTok reached some of our people. Very off-brand, but strangely compelling. Off-brand is sort of my brand, Jesse said. Elias smiled like someone who didn't care what Jesse said, only what he could become. We're offering independent shop owners a chance to scale. Partner with us. We install urban tech terminals. You get digital traffic, inventory support, and a monthly stipend. You keep your space, your tools, your vibe. We just help modernize it. Rowan had entered quietly and was leaning on the counter now, arms crossed. Define modernize, she said. QR code bookings, app-based diagnostics, subscription models, streamlined repair menus. Jesse looked around his shop, bent rims, handwritten signs, a cat he never technically adopted asleep in a milk crate. I think we're good, he said. Elias's smile tightened. You're turning down passive income? I'm not interested in turning my shop into a checkout kiosk with a wrench. We'd elevate your brand. It's not a brand, Jesse said. It's a place. Elias nodded, polite but cold. Well, that's romantic. He left without shaking hands. Rowan waited a beat, then said, Urban Tech Mobility. Even their name makes me want to fight drywall. Jesse smirked. Off-brand but strangely compelling. I want that on my tombstone. That night, Jesse closed up late. Alone again. The buzz from the day had faded, replaced with a kind of quiet resolve. He didn't need urban tech. Didn't want to scale. What he had was messy, real, rusted around the edges, but it worked. Because it was his. He checked the door lock twice, turned off the lights, and stepped into the East Van night. Somewhere out there, someone was probably filming their 10th reaction video to his face. But in here, in this greasy little shop, Jesse Webb was still fixing bikes. Not for the algorithm. For the people. Chapter 9, Spokes and Ghosts. By October, the TikTok fame had gone the way of summer patios and city optimism. Still talked about, but mostly by people who didn't live it. And Jesse preferred it that way. The shop had settled into a sweet groove. Regulars returned. The DIY nights got popular enough to need a sign-up sheet. Even Mikey from next door started selling skate decks with Jesse's face on them as a joke. They sold out. It was Friday, the kind where clouds hung low and the air smelled like rust and cedar. Rowan leaned against the back wall, holding a clipboard and a dangerous look in her eye. I have a proposal, she said. That's how multi-level marketing pitches start, Jesse replied, not looking up from the hub he was repacking. Relax. No leggings or protein powder involved. I want to run a community bike build. For unhoused youth. The shelter on Powell has a dozen kids. They're trying to get to job sites and school, but transit's spotty and expensive. Bikes could help. We build 10. Give them out with locks and helmets. Jesse stopped spinning the axle. That's a real thing, he said quietly. Yeah, Rowan replied. That's the point. He didn't say no. Which, for Jesse, was practically a marriage proposal. Rowan pushed forward. We need parts. Donated frames. Volunteers. Maybe permits for an outdoor build day. Permits. Jesse winced. You trying to get me arrested? We could ask around. Might even get some press. That's when she said the name. Logan could help. Jesse's face dropped like a derailleur cable snapped. No, come on. He runs the Gear Collective now. He's got warehouse space, supplier contacts, grant money. He also sold out half the cycling community for a tele-sponsorship and blocked me on Instagram because I said his beard oil made him smell like a liquor store patio. That was pretty accurate, Rowan said, trying not to laugh. He trademarked Ride Free and printed it on synthetic windbreakers. Rowan put a hand on his shoulder. Look, she said, you don't have to like him. You just have to tolerate him for 30 minutes in exchange for access to 10 complete build kits. Jesse was silent for a long beat. Fine, he grumbled. But if he uses the phrase micromobility ecosystem, I'm leaving. They met Logan the following Monday in a cavernous converted brewery now functioning as the Gear Collective HQ. Logan looked like a Patagonia model who discovered espresso late in life. Slim joggers, boots too clean, a perfectly unthreatening zip-up. Jesse, he said, arms out. Been a minute. Jesse just grunted. Rowan stepped in. Thanks for meeting us. Logan led them past rows of stripped bikes and perfectly arranged tool walls. I heard about the TikTok thing, he said. Hilarious. You've got a good scowl, man. Marketable. I'm not for sale, Jesse replied flatly. Logan didn't flinch. We've got extra kits. Frames, parts, even a few pre-builts. I like what you're doing. You want them? They're yours. Jesse narrowed his eyes. No strings? Well, Logan said with a grin. A few social tags wouldn't hurt. Maybe slap the Gear Collective logo on the banner. Jesse opened his mouth to argue, but Rowan's elbow caught him just in time. We'll credit you, she said. Gratefully. Logan nodded. Cool. Send me your list. Pickups start Friday. Back outside. Jesse lit a cigarette. He was pretending he'd quit. That man wears irony like cologne. Rowan grinned. And yet, we got what we came for. He exhaled slowly, watching the smoke curl upward like a thought he didn't want to say aloud. Feels weird, he said. What does? Building something that matters. Rowan didn't reply right away, just bumped her shoulder into his. Get used to it. That night, Jesse stayed late at the shop, sorting donated frames by wheel size, quietly humming to himself. Out front, taped to the door, was a handwritten note. "Hey, I saw the flyer about the bike build. My kid's at the Powell shelter. Can I help? I used to work bikes back in Winnipeg. Just want to do something good again." Jesse read it twice, then unlocked the door and left it open. The night was getting colder, but something else, someone else, was starting to warm up. Chapter 10, Gears in Motion. The morning fog clung low to Hastings Street as Jesse unlocked the shop. The smell of coffee mixed with the crisp bite of early fall. Outside, the sidewalk had been cleared for tents, tool tables, and stacks of bike parts donated by the Gear Collective and local shops. Rowan was already orchestrating volunteers with a clipboard in one hand and a half-eaten granola bar in the other. "Ready for the circus?" she called over. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jesse muttered, setting up a workstand. By 9 a.m., a motley crew had gathered. Volunteers from the neighborhood, unhoused youth from the shelter, local bike enthusiasts, and a few curious onlookers who'd heard about the build through social media. The energy was raw, real, and sometimes chaotic. One teenager struggled to mount a tire on a rim. Jesse crouched beside her, his voice patient. "Remember, the bead snaps into the rim like a hug, not a chokehold." She laughed. "Got it, bike whisperer." Midday brought lunch and a buzz of conversation. Jesse caught sight of someone near the corner, quiet, unobtrusive. Nadia. She stood with her arms crossed, watching. No shouting, no tears. "No, I'm sorry. Just watching." Jesse's heart hit a steady thump. He considered ignoring her, but instead, he walked over. "Hey," he said. She nodded. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I came because Marco mentioned you were doing this." He nodded. "Good to see you." They stood awkwardly amid the whir of pumps and clatter of tools. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "Not the guy I thought I knew, but who you are now." Jesse blinked. "Thanks." She smiled briefly and turned to help a kid struggling with a chain. The afternoon sped by in a blur of grease, laughter, and the occasional curse word. By 4 p.m., 10 bikes were assembled, each polished and locked, ready for new owners. Jesse felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. Not just for the bikes, but for the tangled people around him. Rowan clapped him on the shoulder. "Not bad for a man cave of steel emotions." He laughed. "Guess it's more like a garage with a heartbeat." As the sun dipped behind the North Shore Mountains, Jesse looked around at the community he'd helped build. Wheels turning, stories weaving together, and maybe, just maybe, new beginnings rolling free. Epilogue. Riding forward. The shop was quieter now. Rain pattered softly against the windows, the city muffled beneath a gray Vancouver afternoon. Jesse stood behind the counter, cleaning a vintage headlamp he'd rescued from a curb. Rowan was out on a group ride with some regulars. The bell over the door chiming only occasionally as familiar faces stopped in for tune-ups or just to say hello. The sign outside now read, "East Van Bikes, where broken things get new life." Jesse thought about how far he'd come. The nights filled with resentment, the bitter social media scars, the unexpected friendships, and the slow rebuilding of trust. He thought about Nadia and Cass, about Logan and Dino, about all the hands that had helped him tighten the spokes of his own life. He took a breath, savoring the smell of grease, coffee, and fresh rain. And then he smiled, a real, steady smile. Because sometimes, fixing a bike was just the beginning.